For thousands of years, we've looked at the Giza Plateau with awe. I mean, it's one of the most incredible things humanity has ever built. But what if it's more than just a wonder of the ancient world? What if the whole thing is a message? A giant astronomical clock designed with unbelievable precision to lock in a single, incredibly important moment in our distant past? That's really the question at the heart of what we're digging into today. You know, the story we all learn is that these are tombs for the pharaohs, built around 2500 BC. But there's another idea, a really compelling one, that suggests that's only part of the story, and the real blueprint for Giza is thousands of years older than we think.
Okay, so to really get this theory, you have to stop looking at the Giza Plateau as separate monuments. The three pyramids, the Sphinx, they're not just individual projects. The idea here is that they are all pieces of one enormous interconnected puzzle. And our investigation is going to start with the oldest riddle of them all.
Right, let's start with the Great Sphinx. This thing is just colossal. It's carved right out of the bedrock and it's been guarding those pyramids forever. But it's holding a secret, a geological clue that makes absolutely no sense in the middle of the Egyptian desert. A clue that suggests it has seen a very, very different world.
This is the absolute core mystery of the Sphinx. If you look at its body and the walls of the pit it sits in, you see these deep vertical cracks and a kind of rounded rolling profile. Now, that is not what happens when wind and sand beat up against a rock for thousands of years. Nope, that is classic erosion from heavy, sustained rainfall. But wait, Giza has been a hyper-arid desert for the last 5,000 years, so where on earth did all that water come from?
So this question got a huge boost from an author named John Anthony West. He brought in Dr. Robert Schoch, a geologist from Boston University, to take a look. And Schoch was the first mainstream scientist to really stick his neck out and say, look, from a purely geological standpoint, the weathering on the Sphinx had to have been caused by at least 1,000 years of serious, heavy rain. And the evidence is it's striking when you see it. Wind erosion cuts in horizontally, making these layered grooves, and you can see that on other monuments of Giza from the same period. But the Sphinx and its enclosure, they're totally different. They've got these deep vertical channels and rounded edges, exactly what you'd find on a cliff in a place that gets a ton of rain, not in a desert. So this geological evidence points to a really stunning conclusion. The last time there was enough rainfall in that part of the world to cause this kind of damage was way back before 10,000 BC, back when the Sahara was actually a green, lush savanna. It suggests the Sphinx could be over 12,000 years old. An absolutely incredible idea, and believe it or not, that's just our first clue. All right, now for the next piece of the puzzle. We're going to move from the clues on the ground to the clues in the sky, because the real key to Giza might not be buried under the sand, but actually written in the stars. This is where the work of researcher Robert Valville comes in, and it's a game changer. He noticed that the three pyramids aren't just placed randomly on the sand. Their layout, their positioning, it's a perfect mirror of the three stars in Orion's belt. And this isn't just some random constellation. For the ancient Egyptians, Orion was the sky form of Osiris, their great god of rebirth and the afterlife. It was hugely important. But here's the twist. Around 2500 BC, when the pyramids were supposedly built, the alignment is close, but it's not perfect. It's a little bit off. Now, because of this really slow wobble in the Earth's axis, called precession, we can use computer software to basically wind back the clock and see what the sky looked like in the past. And as Bouval started winding the stars backwards, he was looking for one specific moment, a moment when the map on the ground and the map in the sky would lock together perfectly. In that moment, it was 10,500 BC. All of a sudden, the geological clue from the Sphinx and the astronomical clue from the pyramids were pointing to the exact same incredibly ancient date. It's an unbelievable coincidence. So this is the point where these two massive clues come together, and you start to see the sheer scale of the design. The theory is that Giza isn't just a graveyard or a temple complex. It's a functioning machine, a giant celestial clock built to mark a very specific moment in time. Now, the architects of Giza left one more clue, like a master key that locks the whole system together. We know the Sphinx is a perfect marker for the equinox. It stares right where the sun rises on the first day of spring. So the question becomes, what was it looking at on the morning of the spring equinox in that exact year? Just remember what we're dealing with here.
The Sphinx is this perfect solar marker gazing due east, and of course, it has the body of a lion.
And here it is, the final piece of this incredible puzzle. In 10,500 BC, on the morning of the spring equinox, the lion-bodied Sphinx gazed at the sunrise, and rising on the horizon, right along with the sun, was its own celestial twin, the constellation of Leo the lion. The lion on the ground was staring directly at the lion in the sky, a perfect one-to-one match.
It's the ultimate expression of that ancient idea, as above, so below. The entire Giza Plateau in this theory becomes a physical map of the sky. You have the pyramids as Orion's belt, the Sphinx as Leo, and even the Nile River mirroring the path of the Milky Way, all locking perfectly into place in the year 10,500 BC.
Now, if this theory is correct, the implications are just staggering. I mean, if the master plan for Giza really dates back almost 13,000 years, then who on earth designed it? And why would they go to such unbelievable lengths to freeze-frame this one specific date? This is where we get into the idea of a lost chapter of human history.
This timeline really puts the mystery into perspective. You've got this date, 10,500 BC, encoded in stone and stars. And then you have this massive 8,000-year gap until the 4th dynasty pharaohs who are credited with building the pyramids. So how could a grand architectural plan like this be created, preserved, and then finally built 8 millennia later?
Well, funny enough, the ancient Egyptians themselves had traditions of a golden age they called Zep Tepi, which means the first time. It was this mythical era of gods, when these 7 sages were said to have brought all the gifts of civilization, astronomy, architecture, farming, to the people of the Nile Valley. Proponents of this theory suggest that maybe Zep Tepi isn't a myth, but a distant, real memory of this much earlier time.
So, how does all this stack up against the conventional evidence? Well, Egyptologists point to graffiti with the name of Pharaoh Khufu found deep inside the Great Pyramid. The alternative view questions if it's even authentic. Mainstream archaeology points to the Diary of Mir, an ancient papyrus describing stone deliveries for Khufu. The counter-argument is that those were just casing stones for renovation, not the building of the main structure. And then, of course, you have the water erosion on the Sphinx, which is the hardest thing for the conventional timeline to explain away.
So this all leads to this grand, overarching story. The theory goes something like this. A highly advanced civilization was wiped out in a global catastrophe around 10,500 BC. A handful of survivors, the sages from the legends, settled in key places around the world like Giza. They created a plan to preserve their knowledge, encoding it into this massive architectural blueprint. That knowledge was then passed down through secret traditions for thousands of years, until it finally burst forth in the 4th dynasty, when the dynastic Egyptians had the power to complete the project that was started millennia before.
And so that's where we're left. We have this huge question. Are we looking at the incredible tombs of 4th dynasty kings? Or are we looking at something far, far older and way more profound? A time capsule of scientific knowledge, a memorial to a lost golden age, and a message passed down to us from a totally forgotten chapter of the human story? The mystery of Giza, for sure, remains.